Target novelisations with another one of the ones that I found for 50p in that 14 book lot in a second-hand bookshop. Doctor Who in the Face of Evil. Unfortunately a really poor condition Target novelisation. I mean, I couldn't even read the full blurb actually because it looks like somebody's been torturing this poor bastard with sellotape. But anyways, Doctor Who in the Face of Evil. I haven't experienced this TV story yet, and nor have I read the Target novelisation, so I can't really comment on it a lot. Very nice cover on it though. Very nice perspective cover with Leela stepping out of the little circle that most of the cover's encased in. So yeah, and I think the blue kind of complements really well with the circle. But anyways, Doctor Who in the Face of Evil. Haven't watched the TV story yet, haven't read the Target novelisation. One of the ones, Doctor Who and the Invisible Enemy, along with the Doctor Who and the Giant Robot Target novelisation, which I showed you earlier. I found this in the same charity shop at the same time, 50p again. This is also a Doctor Who book I have read, and I actually really recommend this one a lot. I haven't watched the TV story, so I can't really say if it's a good television story or not, but I will definitely say it's a good adaptation of a television story. So I would recommend this book actually. It's fantastic, really nice, easy, quick read. It's only 110 pages long actually, which is really crazy. So yeah, I've heard the special effects in Doctor Who and the Invisible Enemy TV story is quite poor. So I probably might suggest actually picking this book up over the television story. One of the ones that I found for 50p in that second-hand bookshop lot again, Doctor Who and the Creature. I haven't experienced this story yet in television story or the Target novelisation, much like Doctor Who and the Face of Evil, but quite an interesting cover, quite an amusing little depiction of the Fourth Doctor just looking up at the sword all kind of terrified. But yeah, that's all I can really comment on really, the cover. Oh, and also that the thing at the end of episode 2 is rather phallic, because I have seen that clip on YouTube. Megalos, again, one I haven't read and one I haven't watched the TV story for. So yeah, don't really know if this novelisation is good or not, and I don't really know if the television story is good or not. I've only heard one opinion, so I heard it's quite an average story, but other than that, don't know too much about Megalos, haven't read the book or watched the TV story. Doctor Who and Warriors Gate. Megalos was another one of the ones that I found for 50p in that second-hand bookshop lot, and same with this one, Doctor Who and the Warriors Gate. I have watched the TV story, and I've watched the entirety of the E-Space trilogy, and I would actually say Warriors Gate was the strongest out of the entire arc. I would say it was a little confusing, but at the same time a really good television story in my opinion. With regards to the actual Target novelisation, I have not read this yet, and I don't really know if it's good or not. Another one of the ones that I found for 50p in that second-hand bookshop lot, Doctor Who and the Keeper of Traken. I don't know too much about whether the TV story is well liked or not, but I haven't watched it in quite a long time. But Doctor Who and the Keeper of Traken is a fantastic TV story in my opinion. I can see why people may hate it because it is rather of a talky story, but the cliffhanger to episode 2, holy shit, that is one of the best cliffhangers in Doctor Who history. It is so creepy and so wonderful. With regards to the actual Target novelisation, I have not read this yet, and I don't really know if it's good or not. Another one of the ones that I found for 50p in that second-hand bookshop lot, Black Orchid. Again, I don't know too much about this, my only 5th Doctor Target novelisation. Probably the best condition book out of the entire 14 lots. have not read it, have not watched TV story. Frontios. I've heard the actual TV story itself is really good, but I haven't watched it. And that is really one of the TV stories that I need to watch, I think. And I'm a bit interested in the Big Finish audio sequel, The Hollows of Time, or the kind of well, The Hollows of Time in general I'm pretty interested in, but anyways, Frontios. I have not read this yet, and nor have I watched the TV story. Doctor Who: The Two Doctors, 2nd edition, the 100th Doctor Who novel. Quite a nice thing to have in my collection, the 100th Target novelisation, 2nd edition. So yeah, I really don't know too much about this. I have not read it yet. Well, I did start reading it quite a while ago, but never finished it. I think I actually started reading about twice before, but I've never finished it, never fully read it, but and nor have I watched the actual television story, so can't really comment on that a lot. Very nice cover art though. Next up we have Delta and the Bannerman. Again, well, I can't really comment on a lot, so I haven't read the Target novelisation, and apparently the TV story is just awful and really, really stupid, so but yeah, quite a nice cover. Mission to Magnus. Apparently this book isn't that good. I haven't read it yet, but yeah, I've heard the actual Big Finish adaptation of that Lost story is actually a lot better than this Target. So yeah, I haven't read it yet, but quite a nice cover. Final one I found in that 14-book lot, Slickback, the novelisation, the novelisation of the first Doctor Who radio special, and I absolutely really like, and I absolutely think that Slickback is actually a really good audio drama, or radio drama. So yeah, I would say if you haven't listened to Slickback yet, I would highly recommend listening to it, because it's quite a good little audio adventure. With regards to the actual Target novelisation, very nice cover. Pretty weird monster that I don't remember too much. I think that might have been the captain from the story or something. I can't remember. I haven't listened to Slickback in ages. But pretty interested in reading this. I think this might be a fairly rare Target actually. But yeah, there's Slickback. And final Target novelisation for my collection is The Paradise of Death, one that I got in a job lot with some Virgin New Adventures, which you're going to see later on. But yeah, haven't read this, haven't listened to the actual radio special. So yeah, it should be an interesting read when I get around to it. And on top of my Targets, there's a few other little bits and pieces, so I thought I might as well show them now. A spare copy of Infinite Requiem, a Virgin New Adventure, which I'll talk about more later on. Then a few Decide Your Destinies, the Spaceship Graveyard, the Time Crocodile, and the Corinthian Project, all of which I found in charity shops. I haven't read these yet, and I'm not extremely interested in them. I just picked them up because I found them in charity shops. Don't know too much about them. Okay then, and at long last, at over an hour into this video, we're finally moving on to the Virgin New Adventures and BBC books. Okay then, now moving on to the PDAs and EDAs, original prints. So let's start off with The Witch Hunt. Okay then, The Witch Hunters by Steve Lyons. One of the best Doctor Who books I have ever read. Just an absolutely incredible Doctor Who book in my personal opinion. This one was just absolutely phenomenal in my personal opinion. It was an absolutely incredible Doctor Who book, and I have reviewed this book if you want to check that out. So yeah, one of the best Doctor Who bargains I ever got, and yeah, absolutely incredible Doctor Who book. Cannot recommend this one enough. If you like William Hartnell historical stories, you probably can't get better than this. I would say this is better than all of his. I think I'd actually say this is actually probably the best pure historical story ever from Doctor Who. It's an absolute gem from the first Doctor run, absolutely incredible. Next up we have City at World's End by Christopher Bulis. Absolutely fantastic book once again. Basically this is kind of like the Inferno story for the first Doctor, kind of this apocalyptic end of the world kind of story with this asteroid on an imminent crash course with the or collision course with the planet that the story is mostly set on. And yeah, absolutely fantastic Doctor Who book once again. Very memorable in some places. For some reason I remember the opening quite well, but really fantastic book. Absolutely love the cover on this, and this is once again one I would absolutely highly recommend. Love the colours of the first on the cover of it. The Time Travellers, one I started reading but haven't finished it. It's been about a year since I read the first chapter of this book, so I'm going to have to start it again, start reading it again. But The Time Travellers, very nice cover, and I don't really know too much about this book, so yeah, The Time Travellers, quite an interesting sounding story. I think it's about people in World War I or World War II getting advanced technology far too early. Next up we have the first Past Doctor adventure book ever published, which is The Devil Goblins from Neptune. The Devil Goblins from Neptune is a fantastic Doctor Who book, and The Devil Goblins from Neptune has a title which is The Devil Goblins from Neptune, which is very fun to say, so The Devil Goblins from Neptune. Anyway, The Devil Goblins from Neptune, absolutely fantastic Doctor Who book once again, and this book is very, very, very graphic. I actually kind of cringed towards the end of this book because it was so horrible what happened to one of the characters. One of the characters gets, or basically what's happened, well, I can't actually kind of spoil the book, so I won't say that, but very gritty moments, and one part towards the end which really did make me shudder. But fantastic Doctor Who book, very kind of season 7 style of a John Pertwee story. So yeah, I'd recommend that, not for the faint of heart. Now next up we have one which is technically a Past Doctor adventure, The Harvest of Time by Alistair Reynolds, with probably the most phallic spaceship I have ever seen. But apart from the phallicness of the cover aside, seriously, how did that make onto the shelves? Anyways, I haven't read this yet. Oh, it says Pitch Perfect on the back, what a coincidence. Anyways, I haven't read this yet. It should be quite an interesting read. Quite a thick book. Okay then, now moving on to other kind of PDA books. We have Last Man Running by Chris Boucher, which I actually found in a charity shop for £1.75. And the crazy thing that there is about this specific copy of this book, is that I was looking in a second-hand bookshop called Bookends about a year prior to me finding this book in that charity shop, and just to let you know, that's how Bookends price their books. So yeah, and I was looking at a copy of Last Man Running in that Bookends shop, and I came back a couple of days later and it was gone. Then about a year later, I found this copy of Last Man Running in a charity shop, and because of this £4 price thing up here, and this crease on the spine, which I remember ever so fondly for some reason, I'm pretty sure this is the exact same copy of Last Man Running I was looking at a year prior to me finding the same copy of Last Man Running in a charity shop, which is without question one of the most convoluted and crazy Doctor Who bargains I've ever got. In fact, I'll take the craziest Doctor Who bargain I've ever got. I mean, what are the chances? I mean, you finding the exact same copy of a Doctor Who book a year later to when you're originally looking at it in a completely different shop and miles and miles apart. Anyways, I'm ranting. Last Man Running. Apparently a very good Doctor Who book. Have not read it yet. I've actually read a few pages of it and it was quite interesting. Lots of character developments. Science fiction, a rather average Doctor Who book in my personal opinion. I didn't like this one too much. Very nice cover, but some of the content of this book was pretty nice, such as the main central plot, and but yeah, other than that, other than a few other things, it wasn't that good of a Doctor Who book. About a 4.5 out of 10 to a 5.5 out of 10. I have reviewed that book, so if you want more details on why I didn't like that book, please check that video out. Deep Blue, written by Martin Morris. I don't know too much about this book. I've heard it's rather graphic and gritty, but other than that, I really don't know too much about this book at all. So yeah, there's Deep Blue, haven't read it. The Hollow Men, which is apparently a sequel to The Awakening for some reason, which is rather bizarre. But anyways, The Hollow Men, I haven't read this book yet, but I am rather interested in reading it. It's got a very interesting sounding plot, but other than that, I really don't know too much about this book. The Algebra of Ice, I think this one has been a bit Marmite actually with a few people. I think this one's actually quite a Marmite Doctor Who book, but other than that, I really don't know too much about this book. I have read this one ages ago. Rather interesting opening and a rather interesting kind of mysterious kind of story throughout. So, and I remember rating it a 9 out of 10. I can't remember too much about it, but from memories I would recommend that book. And now we're moving on to the EDAs. Okay then, now we're moving on to the 8th Doctor novels. Starting off with War of the Daleks. One of the two Dalek novels by John Peel. I really don't know too much about this book. I haven't read it again, but apparently it isn't that good. Apparently with this book, John Peel was trying to mop up the continuity mess of and trying to tie a little gap, or trying to tie together the strands left hanging by the movie, or trying to tie in this book somehow to the TV movie, I think, or something like that. But apparently it didn't succeed, and yeah, apparently this book isn't that good. But I think this is actually quite a rare book, so yeah, it's nice to have in my collection. I haven't read it yet. Next up is one I actually have read, and one of the 3 EDAs that I've read, Dreamstone Moon. Now, this book feels a bit like a filler story. It just feels like a very kind of fillery story, this one. But is it a bad filler story? No, I would say it's quite a good filler story actually. It's not the greatest book in the world by any means, but it's still an enjoyable little story with some very interesting concepts to it, such as the Dreamstone and what the Dreamstone can do and all of that. So yeah, quite a good Doctor Who novel, this one. Bit of a filler story, but it is a nice quick read. This one's less than 250 pages. I believe it's only like 200. Yeah, it's only about 250 pages long, so it's a nice quick read. 7 out of 10 for that. Next is Seeing Eye by Jonathan Blum and Kate Orman. I haven't read this one, but it's one I'm pretty interested in reading, but I'm more interested in reading The Virgin New Adventures at the minute, so I'm not sure when I'm going to get around to reading this book, but apparently this book is just incredible, so yeah, that should be a pretty interesting read when I get around to it. The Scarlet Empress by Paul Magris, a book that actually features the character of Iris Wildtime in it, which is interesting. I haven't read this again, and I don't really know too much about it. I don't know whether it's meant to be good or bad. Well, I think this is kind of one of those Doctor Who books where you may only enjoy it if you enjoy the actual writer's writing style, which is kind of this mad hallucinogenic style that Paul Magris has. And I've actually read a 8th Doctor novel called Mad Dogs and Englishmen by Paul Magris, and I really enjoyed that, so I think I'll enjoy that when I get around to reading it, if I ever do get around to reading it. Next up is The Face Eater by Simon Messingham. This is again another Doctor Who book that I've reviewed. This one is a bit of a Marmite book, I think, with fans. You either love it or you hate it. I'm one of those people that doesn't necessarily hate it, but doesn't necessarily love it either. It's a bit of an average Doctor Who book in my opinion. The opening to this book and the climax to this book were really good. The monsters really good, the characters were really good, the writing was really good, the setting was really good, but just the middle part of it, in between the opening and the climax, just didn't grip me for some reason, and I really don't know why, so I'm pretty confused as to why I don't find this book to be good. It had all of the ingredients for a good Doctor Who book, but the middle of it, but as a whole, it just didn't grip me apart from the opening and the climax, so yeah, a bit of a disappointment there. 5 out of 10 for The Face Eater, maybe a little lower actually. Got a few books here that are a little bit sticky. Yeah, bit of stickiness up there. Unnatural History by Jonathan Blum and Kate Orman. I really don't know too much about this. This is apparently a very arc-heavy book, but I think it's also quite a well-liked Doctor Who EDA. So yeah, that should be pretty interesting when I get around to reading it, if I do get around to reading it. Next up we have Autumn Mist by David A. McKenty. Again, one I haven't read. I did start reading this and I have read one chapter of it, and that was pretty interesting. But I haven't read this book as a whole, and I really don't know too much about it, and apparently it's really good. So yeah, that should be an interesting read if I do get around to reading it. Next up we have Interference Book 1, Shock Tactic, and Interference Book 2, The Hour of the Geek, both of which are by Lawrence Miles, and this is the first and currently last Doctor Who novel that is actually split across 2 books. The covers to these books are just incredible, and I got these for a bargain price off of eBay for like only £20, which is a pretty damn good deal. I mean, I got them in pretty much mint condition and they were only 20 quid, and because the reason why that's a bargain is because normally you'd see one of these books online for like upwards of 40 or 50 pounds, which is just diabolical. And yeah, I'm really interested in actually reading these books. I've heard the Interference arc is a bit of a mess and not amazing, so But yeah, I'm still pretty interested in reading it, so I am a bit daunted by the length of this behemoth, because it's like 600 pages long. But yeah, I actually have started reading, I actually did start reading Interference Book One a couple times, but never finished it. I got up to like page 75 at one point, but never finished it. But yeah, still pretty interested in reading those books, if I ever do get around to reading them. But yeah, apparently they're not that good, but I'm still pretty curious as to reading it. Next up we have Frontier Worlds. I actually got this in a job lot with Autumn Mist, Unnatural History, The Face Eater, The Scarlet Empress, Dreamstone Moon, and War of the Daleks, which is pretty nice. Again, I think I spent about £20 for those 7 books, which is pretty nice. Nice, good deal. Anyways, Frontier Worlds, I haven't read this book, but I think it's some sort of book about these kind of organic plant aliens or something like that, trying to take over humans or something. I can't remember exactly, and I can't be bothered to read the blurb at the minute, but from that it sounds like a pretty interesting read. I haven't read it yet. Parallel 59. Unfortunately I spent £4 on this book. I didn't know at the time that this book was absolutely terrible, and this was actually my first kind of more mature original Doctor Who novel that I purchased, along with The Algebra Vice and Science Fiction. All three of these books I got for £4 each in a second-hand bookshop, namely Bookends, which I mentioned earlier. And but yeah, I haven't read this book yet. Apparently it isn't that good, so I might not even get around to reading it. Apparently it's just god awful. Now, final EDA in my little EDA section is the 100th BBC Doctor Who novel, Mad Dogs and Englishmen. Like I said earlier, with The Scarlet Empress, this is one Doctor Who book I have read, and it was just batshit insane. I mean, there's even one point in this book where the dogs make the Doctor, Sam and Fitz their dogs. So basically it's the opposite of what we would do, and basically the Doctor, Sam and Fitz are forced to strip naked and actually be dogs to the dogs in this book, which is just so feckin' crazy. And that's the best way to describe this book, feckin' crazy. But is it a good book? Absolutely. This is a very surreal and very odd and very bizarre book, but at the same time an absolutely wonderful one at that. And that is all of my well, that is most of my BBC books done and dusted. Now we're moving on to the reprint, and then probably the most exciting part of this collection video, the Virgin New Adventures and Missing Adventures. We're about to move on to reprints. But before we get onto those, I have just found out that I forgot about a couple boxes that were up here full of Doctor Who books that I completely forgot about. The reason why some books are missing in here is because they are Beautiful Chaos and The Eyeless, those two up there from this box, and I've just realised that this is my third copy of the Sontaran games. So yeah, got lots of Sontaran games, gotta catch them all I guess. Then there's that box set, this one is cheap in charity shop, so I thought why not. Made of Steel, Stone Rose, Nightmare, Black Armor, The Art of Destruction, and The Story of Martha. And now I've gone over those already, so I won't go over those again. Okay, then now let's move on to the reprint, starting off with the 50th anniversary collection. I have a near complete set of the 50th anniversary collection. I also have 5/8 of the history collection, and I have 0/8 of the collection, which I do hope to change sometime soon. Anyways, and the only book I'm missing out of the history, the 50th anniversary collection is Beautiful Chaos. So starting off with 10 Little Aliens, this was actually the first ever Doctor Who book I reviewed on this channel, and it's an absolutely fantastic Doctor Who book, not your typical William Hartnell story, and I do agree with people it should be like more of a Colin Baker book or something like that, because it's rather graphic for a William Hartnell novella, but still a really enjoyable sci-fi romp, kind of very really kind of heavy sci-fi novel, pretty enjoyable read. Next up we have actually the first book I read in 2015, or the first Doctor Who book I read in 2015, Dreams of Empire by Justin Richards. An absolutely fantastic Doctor Who book. I think I might review this sometime soon, or do a Skulls general reviews on it, possibly. Sometime soon. It's been ages since I've read this book, so I can't remember too lot about it, but I remember it being absolutely fantastic. Very simplistic of a story, but very well done one at that. If you're a Patrick Troughton fan like I am, I would highly recommend this book. Absolutely excellent depiction of Patrick Troughton by Justin Richards. Last of the Gathering by Mark Gatiss. The adaptation of what was going to be the final game if it wasn't for Roger Delgado's untimely death. This book is absolutely incredible. If you're a Jon Pertwee fan, this is an absolute must. It is so good. It's got everything a good Jon Pertwee story would have. Even the surprise return of an old villain, which makes, but anyways, Last of the Gathering, fantastic book. Would highly recommend that, especially if you're a Pertwee fan. Festival of Death, I really don't know too much about this book. I got it for £1 in Oxfam late last year, which made me really happy. But yeah, I don't know too much about this book. Apparently it's meant to be pretty good. It's Gallifrey Falls No More's favourite 50th anniversary collection book. Apparently it's like this kind of book where the Doctor sees like a tragedy happening, and he has to go back in time to see how he prevented that tragedy from happening. So it's a very interesting book, and I might get around to reading that one day. Fear of the Dark. God, I got Iron Maiden in my head now, which is a freaking awesome song if you haven't heard that yet. Anyway, Fear of the Dark. I haven't read this one yet. I really don't know too much about it, so I can't really comment on it a lot. I don't know whether it's good, bad, or whatever. Players. Again, I don't know too much about this. I think this is the introductory novel to monsters that are called the Players, who then made a return in the second Doctor novel. World Games, I believe it's called. I might be incorrect there, but yeah, Players, I haven't read this one yet, nor do I know too much about it. Remembrance of the Daleks. Apparently an absolutely fantastic Doctor Who novel this one is. Again, Harry Williams Productions has actually reviewed this book, and this is the only Target novelisation out of the 50th anniversary collection. So yeah, pretty interesting to see that, although I don't quite get why they republished something like, oh, I don't know, and just a 7th Doctor book from like the PDA line or something like that. Earthworld. I only picked this up in the works for a couple of quid, which I got most of my 50th anniversary books from. So yeah, if you don't have any of the 50th anniversary collection, I would recommend checking out your local The Works, if there is one nearby you, because you might find them for a really good price, or some of them at least for a really good price. Earthworld appears to be pretty ubiquitous in my local one, but anyway, Earthworld. I haven't read this book yet, nor do I know too much about it. Only Human, I talked about this earlier, so I don't really need to talk about it again. Same with this one, The Final Stars Go By. Again, I talked about it earlier, so I don't really need to go on about it. The Witch Hunters by Steve Lyles.
Now we're moving on to History Collection with this absolutely incredible novel. This is one I have read, and I described it to be the most powerful and amazing Doctor Who book I have ever read, and just words cannot even begin to describe how fantastic this book is. I reviewed it and I just can't recommend it enough. Absolutely incredible book. The Roundheads by Mark Gatiss. Again, one I would highly recommend. It's just an absolutely incredible Doctor Who book. One of my all-time favourite historicals. I'm pretty tempted to give it a 9 out of 10 actually. Absolutely fantastic Doctor Who novel. If I am when I'm going to Dimensions next year, if I do end up going to that, which is pretty much 100% guarantee, I probably will get this signed by Anarchy Willis, possibly. I get Powder Dalek signed as well. Anyways, The Roundheads, absolutely fantastic historical book. The Doctor himself doesn't get too much to do in this novel, but still a really enjoyable novel nonetheless, with plenty of twists, turns and wonderful character depictions. Again, one I probably will review sometime soon, possibly. The English Way of Death, or The English Way of Overrated in my opinion, or The English Way of Overratedness in my opinion. It's an okay Doctor Who book, not the greatest Doctor Who book by any mean. Not the biggest fan of that. The Shadow in the Glass, which is the only Doctor Who book in my collection that is actually signed. I recently got this signed by Conan Baker at Belfast Film and Comic Con 2015. So yeah, well, that's absolutely awesome. Anyway, Shadow in the Glass, absolutely fantastic Doctor Who book. Again, this is one I have reviewed, and I would say this is one book that doesn't get talked about too much. To be honest, I haven't really heard too much about this book, to be honest, and I would say it's kind of not very much talked about gem really. But Shadow in the Glass, fantastic Doctor Who book. I would really recommend it. Especially because it plays around with the concept of resurrecting Adolf Hitler very well. And finally, in my reprint section, we have Human Nature by Paul Cornell, probably the most legendary Doctor Who book there is. I did find this book a bit overrated in my personal opinion, but still an absolutely fantastic Doctor Who book. I would definitely recommend that one. Again, is another one I have reviewed. And now we're going to be moving on to the Virgin New Adventures and the Virgin Missing Adventures.